definitely got to talk to the Ralph Goodale issue. He's issued a warning that he's going to give an address, and that the issues of firearm ownership are going to be addressed, hot on the heels of probably one of the most tragic shootings we've seen in a long time in Quebec just recently. And I'm very nervous when I see the committee he's formulating it out of has police in it. They're subject to the pressure of their bosses and their bosses to come up with decisions that fall in line with company policy. Less guns is better. And so to put 3 police officers on that committee, I mean, the optics of it all. Something should be done about that immediately. If you've got what's appearing to be a stacked deck from a group that has felt marginalized for 20 years plus, you've got recent decisions that seem to fly in the face of all reason. Guns being brought back in for a reassessment based on the fact that it might be a variant and it's got a different stamp on the stock, and that somehow makes it a different gun, which is ridiculous, and then finds that gun to be prohibited. Throws a gigantic wrench, into the lives of a lot of people. Businesses, people that have bought it. But hot on the heels of this tragic shooting, suddenly we're going to generate some new law. It's important that we get a fair shake. And once again, in history, firearms owners have been compared to the people. The thought is that they're somehow in the same category. When they generate new laws that have an impact on these law-abiding owners and don't seemingly have to have any impact on the criminal element, it's unnerving as a legitimate firearm owner to have the two compared. So I guess my problem would be is if they're creating law and they're creating it using people to make the new regulations, somehow they better rewrite the entire thing. If they don't, it's so filled with ambiguity and vagueness, and things need to be clearly defined, including property rights for people. I think it's really important, that people understand that, if I've owned something legally, to have the government come in and suddenly swoop in and interfere with that and my lawful enjoyment of that property, it's just really wrong. So to have the new people that are creating legislation, this new body of rules that we'll all have to live under, and after the last 20 years of seemingly poorly thought out, poorly executed laws that hot on the heels of this very emotional time in Canadian history, where we're having new laws that are about to be generated. There's a lot of uncertainty in the firearm community. I'm seeing people, at each other's throats. They're so scared. The firearm community has always had a problem with unity. And part of the reason why I created the page is because I wanted to bring everybody together under one roof. Tactical shooters, collectors, cowboy guys, hunters, long-range guys, metallic silhouette shooters, bullseye. I mean, all these different groups of people, they all work disconnected. And now we have social media, and we're all fighting for the same thing. And too often I'm seeing people turning on one another, and the name-calling and the abuse. And that's something that I just won't permit on the Canadian gun law. If you're going to be abusive to one another, disrespect one another, talk down, to people, chances are you won't get along well on the site. And I tend to give people an opportunity to correct whatever issue it is, do it in a respectful way. I kind of police it as a community. And I think what I've really done is, hopefully I've really done is create a safe space, at the risk of sounding liberal, a safe space for, firearms enthusiasts and new people who like to come and enjoy firearms, the way I see them. And people seem to, really have responded well to it, and it's been fantastic. But I mean, the truth is that I'm really glad to have created this community where people can get along. And I see so many other communities right now that are just at each other's throats, and I see this little island of peace that I've created, and I love it. And it's really important that everybody come here to this place because you're safe here. I will be your voice. If you can't speak up, I want to go to Parliament and say I represent 100,000 people. So tell all your friends, right? Everybody who loves guns should come here. the Canadian gun vault. I want people to get behind my banner, right? Because I'm going to give you a voice. That's the way I feel, and I don't share that with enough people. But the truth is we have been so marginalized and so victimized so often, that we should have a cohesive voice. We shouldn't be arguing with one another. It drives me crazy watching everybody argue. So I want to see everybody come underneath one collective banner under my hand. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets along as best we can. If you can't get along, get out. So what I want to do is I want to create this place for everybody to come that they can feel like they're going to get heard. And if I can go to Parliament and I can convince Ralph Goodale, right, that I should be on that committee, it's really important to me. I'm willing to give up my time, my expertise. I have a background in firearms. Some might argue I know quite a bit. In the grand scheme of things, I don't believe I do. But the truth is that in me, he would get the perspective of a firearm enthusiast while still retaining the values of a police officer that was decorated. I don't want to be, for the people that know me, I don't talk about it much. But I mean, I was a decorated officer, and I had a very successful 20-year career, and I loved it. But I left it. And so now I'm offering my time. I'm going to help you with the generation of these laws. If you can find it in your heart to be fair to the firearm community, you'll find a place for me on this committee. One more chair, just one more person with a voice, right? I will not generate any law that compromises public safety, but at the same time, I would like to carefully care for the legitimate firearm community at the same time. Because I have a foot in both worlds, I think it's kind of important that a guy like me be there. And I mean, you get free consultation fees. I won't bill the Canadian public, which, I'm sure will love the price tag connected to this. Because the last time they came up with a response to all these problems, what we got was $2 billion worth of a completely wasted registry. As Canadian public, we should definitely be on guard. The last time they came up with gun laws, and it was a knee-jerk reaction to, a very emotional and tragic event, that I can't downplay, they came up with a $2 billion waste of your tax dollars. And that drove me crazy. Because what we got? We got a shoulder shrug and a whoops, we blew it. And they're still fighting to get some form of it back in, which really drives me nuts. Because I don't know if this generation is completely distracted, right, by what they're seeing. But the truth is that I haven't seen a lot of great decisions being made by this government so far. I'm hearing a lot of bad ones, but I'm kind of busy with photography. But I'm hearing about a lot of bad decisions being made by a government that's supposed to be in charge of us, and we've elected these people in to power, and now they seem to be making all these bad decisions, and we're hot on the heels of a very tragic event, and I can't tell you how much it pains me to hear that a legitimate firearm may have been used. That's not me. I won't be compared to that person. But I think it's really important that we recognize that there's a large group of people that own firearms that are not the problem. And so if they're not the problem, then let's not generate laws that have an impact on them. Can we gear or find a system that properly addresses the issue of violent criminal activity involving guns without completely destroying people's lives and the value of their property? The idea that I could be punished as part of a collective because some crazy lunatic made a horrible decision and did something completely atrocious. And that so bothers me that I would be compared to that, because nothing could be further from the truth. And I know so many people that are like that. They're appalled. In fact, it drives us crazy as firearms owners to see them wasting money on us, when they could be putting it in better areas where it could be spent, getting productive, great results, but it always seems like they're wasting money over here. So you got this $2 billion registry that they scrapped. We all told them that it wasn't going to work, or that it wasn't going to be useful enough, or that it was going to cost a lot more than it did. It was a nightmare, $2 billion, and they just shrugged their shoulders and said, that's enough. I guess we'll have to do away with it. And now we're about to make some laws again, and I think that we should be very leery of anything that they generate that was like that. The last time it was like that, it involved bans. It's that kind of thinking that has such an impact on people's lives. We need to make sure that we have proper representation. If we're going to be there, there should be somebody like me. I love guns, but I love the idea of making sure that the public constantly feels safe. I did that for 20 years. I demonstrate that.